This session is going to go over getting started with the TrafficViewer Pro software. When you get our counter, which like a VehicleCount 2500, it's got the only thing it has on it that you have to worry about is two inputs for your hoses when you set it out in the street, and then when you want to get data out or talk to the unit for any reason, you use the communications cable, and that's it. Otherwise, that's all there is to it. Okay, so to get started, say you've set this thing out in the field. I set it on the calibrator and generated some data on it, and just for this demo. So the first thing you got to do is plug in the cable, the download. We have a download adapter cable. There. Anyway, one end of it is a standard USB connector, and the other end, which will plug into your PC, and this end is a specialized connector for going into our counter. Okay, so the first thing we got to do is, before you start TrafficViewer Pro, is you plug in you plug it in, and hopefully it runs, connects, but you might get some beeps, you might not on your computer when you do that. So before you start TrafficViewer Pro, if you put it in after you start TrafficViewer Pro, it won't see the probe. So make sure that it's plugged in before. It doesn't matter if it stays plugged in all the time, but it should be there before TrafficViewer Pro starts. So let's go ahead and start TrafficViewer Pro, which I happen to have right over here. And there we go. My computer's kind of slow. There it is. All right. And here we are. This is what you see when it comes up. Okay. And let's just walk through getting started. So you see this screen, and this is it's called communications window. That'll be telling us that we get connected to our counter. So we'll go ahead and plug it in. And then normally you'd click on auto detect. There is a possibility if you know the COM port and you want to connect it direct, you can, but auto detect scans all the serial COM ports if there's more than one and sends little commands out, and if it gets the right response back, it'll connect. And this is what happens when it connects. You get this overview screen of the unit you're connected to. It has the model number, the serial number, version of software, and then it's got the time and date in the unit and the time and date on your PC that you're connecting to. So normally these two will always be identical, or within a few minutes of each other. If it's more than that, there's a problem. Here's the start date time. This is when the data in the unit was last cleared. That's the way you update the time inside the unit, is you clear the unit data, and at that time it then sets the unit to the same time as the PC it's connected to. All right, and this is our memory usage. It's the only other thing on this screen, and it says we're using 6.4 KB of 256 megabytes of storage. So that's the sign-on screen, and once you got that, and do look at these, it's kind of important that the start time be reasonable, where you expect it to be, and the unit and PC should almost always be in alignment. Okay, once you got this, before that was connected, these buttons weren't here, but they popped up as soon as the unit was connected. And there are 4 buttons: are download, which is the one we'll use now, configure unit, clear unit data, which we don't want to do, and show live. Show live would be used when you're setting a counter up, if you wish. Okay, we'll go with this one. But the normal thing you do is you connect the counter, you get this little screen, you verify everything looks reasonable, hit download, and it will then pop up. Download the data from the unit. Usually takes a little longer than this because you have more data, but this is the setup, the data settings screen, we call it. And this, you choose how the unit was set up in the field. By default, when you get the software from us, it's going to specify a 2-hose single lane, and not metric, though it'll be English. I've been using this FHWA and the spacing of 36 inches. Normally, when you do the download, it comes up. This is what it's got. You may or may not want to enter. These fields can be edited at this time. You can put whatever you want in them. It's just for your information, and it will end up on the reports. Okay, this looks the way you want, and as I say, normally in a normal application, after you connect, you get this data, you move on to the continue button. This goes then and processes the data using those parameters, and this is what the results were in this particular case. And it's called the data overview screen. Again, it tells you it's a peak count 2500, and there's that location and comments, which you could fill back in the other. You can't edit them here, but the other field, the data settings, you could. It tells you it's set up for 2 hoses, 36-inch single lane, which is what we had we didn't select, it was set up. FHWA is the scheme, and posted speed wasn't entered, so we don't have that. Unit ID, that's a user settable field also. You can actually put a unique ID in each counter if you wish. Serial number of the counter, and then this is the actual A and B counts that the counter has retrieved so far. It has stored in its memory. And that's the total, so if you had multiple studies, this would be the sum of all those studies. Also, the summary screen here, it gives you just a summary of the speed and class of all the data that's in the unit, which if it's multiple studies will be the speed and class of multiple studies. However, it's dependent on whatever hose configuration you used last time. So these meters for single studies are just fine. They tell you information about the data you just collected. The first data quality meter is just telling you of the total hits that were recorded, how many were we using in our, how many did we end up using? So the channel quality, actually, just skip over this one for a moment. The channel quality is the comparison of the A to the B channel. If they're in 100%, which they are, 1002, 1002, they're 100% in agreement. If they're out of balance, that percentage will reflect the amount of out of balance they are, which usually is an indication, if it gets pretty far out, is an indication of something wrong with one of the hoses. Not absolutely certain, but 99% of the time it's a problem with the hoses. Okay, the classification quality, this just means of all the counts that are available, how many of the hits were used to classify, in this case 100%. So all the hits were used to classify vehicles. I ran the calibrator for 500 vehicles, so we got 500 class 2s running at 35 miles an hour, so that ended up in these 2 cells. Okay, now once you got here, and normally if everything looks good, you just pop through those 2 screens, you come here, now you're going to want to report your data. And there's some buttons over on the right side. Just quickly, data settings just puts you back to that screen where you set up the hoses and check the dwell time and so forth. I'll cancel that. And then you got print reports, export reports, save data. We recommend that once you get to this screen, you always save data. So I'll do that just because I'll show you how it's used. In this case, I will save it here. I'll give it a name kind of like that one, but it was a 36-inch. I just did a similar. Oh, let's see what we got here. There we go. Just give it a name, a meaningful name for you. Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute. The reason you do the save data is at that point, once you save the data, that's saving it in that file we did. It's a raw image of what's in the counter. So if you're going to clear the counter at this time, that's safe to do because now you have all the data 100% raw stored in that file. Okay. And I'll show you in a moment what we can do with the file. But anyway, so normally, though, you come through, I would recommend you do the save data and then go up and print your reports. Or you can wait till later. That's why you have the save data. You can come back later, pull that file in, and do this same thing. I'll show you just in a moment. When you go to print reports, let's just go through this. This is just a getting started. So here's the data summary, and that's the first hit that the unit detected, and that's the last hit of data that's in the unit. And then you're allowed to do a start time, stop selection if you wish. If you don't, just go with it the way it is. Normally, for a study, you put it out, you get it back, you can just run the report on everything you collected. If you want to run multiple studies before reporting, like set the counter out and then move it to another location and maybe another, and then bring it back to the office and get the data out, you can do that. And you use this start thing to start stop time to select those different studies for a report. Okay, this particular instance, these are the reports that are available. Volume, northbound, that happened to be the direction we have it set for. I didn't go into details with you on that, but anyway, weekly volume, classifications northbound, and speeds northbound. And to print the report, just simply select the one you want, say volume, and then click on continue, and you'll get a report. And it's pretty simple in this case. Just shows the 500 between those at time, and that was it. That's the only thing that's in it. Now you don't have to print this. I mean, that's what it'd look like if it printed out. So at this point, you can say, okay, I've seen it. You close it. If you just want to look at make sure the data is got in there okay, then that's all you need to do. You don't really have to print it at that time if you don't wish. Okay, now what I was going to do is show you, we saved the data and say you connected the unit, you downloaded it, got it configured the way you want, you saved the data. But you don't want to create the reports today. Maybe you want to give that file to somebody that does report creating. Okay, you just collect the data and you give it to them. All right, close it. They get the file. They just run TrafficViewer Pro like normal. They open file, and you go pick the file you want. So that's the way we stored it as test 136. Open, and there it is. Bingo! This is exactly what you saw when we saved it. It's just an exact duplicate. And at this time, if you saved it, but you changed your mind on how you want to get data out of the unit, you can go over to data settings, just as if you just downloaded the data, and you can change any of these settings you want. Okay, so that's and then here you can print your reports at this point in time. All right, so that's the reason to use it. I was going to, here in data settings, you'll notice I didn't give you much details here since it's just a getting started, but on your layout, it's kind of important. This arrow says that, tells you what hose gets hit first, A or B or A. So you can do that. You can also run your mouse up over the A and click on it, and it'll allow you to swap A and B if you want to leave the arrow pointing that direction. So you have either two ways of getting in the correct order. This also tells you the direction, and you can choose the standard ones, or you can type your own direction in there. It's editable field. But the four coordinates, four cardinal directions are included just nominally, so you can just select one. When you go multi-lane, well, any case, let's back out of here for right now. So I'll just hit cancel. Cancel. All right. And we're going to go ahead and close this file up and get a more interesting file. So I'm going to open a file that let's see, that would be in downloads, I believe. Let's see if this is the one I want. Yes, it is. Now, this is a file that has a lot more hits, and this is a real-world file, whereas the other one was not. So, and we can go over and look at the data settings. That's the first thing after it was downloaded that people set up. Somebody located a location in it, and they even put the direction westbound. So, and here they selected a single lane, 2 hoses, and with westbound traffic. They English, FHWA, 15 bins. FHWA is normally 13 bins. This company wanted an extra bin or 2 for their data. Okay, and then the hose spacing is nominally the same. And here the default, we normally have the default when you buy the software from us at 55 milliseconds. They have set it up at 140. And the reason is the traffic is slower than normal. Normal traffic being, 35 to 50 miles an hour. But in a neighborhood, if you're doing neighborhood streets, for instance, that would be a lot slower. Anyway, let's continue from here and just do a quick glance over their file. All right. Now, we come in here, and everything is like I explained before, and they did have a posted speed of 25, which is that. Let's quickly look at data settings. Right here, you could put a posted speed in there, and if you don't know what dwell to set, but you know that if it's getting slower, I should set the dwell, you can hit calculate dwell, and if you have a posted speed, it'll calculate a dwell for that. I believe it calculates, yes, 109, but in actual fact, they want 140, so that's okay. We'll leave with what they chose. 109 would have been optimal, but 140 is good too. You just make sure it's on the longer side rather than the shorter side of dwell. Any case, let's cancel that. Come back here, and here's the data that they collected. And if once you collect a lot of data, you'll get used to the pattern of how the classes are distributed and the speeds. The classes typically, class 2, you almost always be the largest category. 1s are motorcycles, so depending on where in the country you live, that may be almost nothing or lots of counts. Won't dominate 2 unless it's a motorcycle convention or something. And class 3 is pickups and vans. Class 4 is buses, like school buses and stuff. And class 5 is delivery trucks like UPS and FedEx and stuff. Okay. And then the other thing over here is the speeds. They should be what they call a bell-shaped curve. They should start low and move up to a peak at the average speed and then drop off, because you'll always have some people going a little slower and some going faster. Sometimes this is a very sharp thing, only that people stay pretty close to the speed, and other times it gets a little spread out like here. At lower speeds, you see it spread out more. And anyway, it says the average speed is somewhere between 25 and 29. And so that's why they went back and posted, and it may have been posted at 25 also, so they could calculate a dwell. The thing to note here is that was a pretty long dwell, 140. And you see the A hose counts and the B hose counts. These are the counts that are left after filtering, and usually it's the dwell that's the filter. There's a couple other things, but the dwell is the main one. And it says before that, the counter actually has recorded 95,754 hits. but only 52,000 are going to be used for processing. Likewise here, 93, 270, but only 52 something is going to be used. Okay, and notice our quality meters actually have something other than 100%. The data quality, 97.2. This is the amount of hits that were used in a classification that were actually used to derive classification, so 97% were used. The classification quality was 100%, so everything that it processed, it used. It made a classification for it. And channel quality is the match between the A and the B, but that would be the A and the B, the actual counts that were before filtering. So, and this is a real world situation, so it looks more like what you'd expect. And that's what, anyway, that's basically it. Here you could go to print reports. I'll just go into that so you can see for a moment. This one had said it was started on 2/2/23 and ended on 2/9/23. It had 8 full days of data. Rather than look at all that data, let's just do one of the things I do usually as a first check against a file is I do weekly volume and then just click continue. This just gives me an overview of westbound, what the volume looked like. And you can see it collected data and then went to zeros and then collected more data for a few days. So the weekly overview is nice to know, and you say, now that looks unusual, unless somebody had set it out and then took it up, or if a hose breaks free, which happens, and then it was found and fixed next morning, that would explain this. We'd have to look at the data in detail to see what the problem was. But in any case, that's why you would use this, just to make sure that everything looks good for the whole study. And so that's it as far as getting started. That's all you need to know. You download the data, you connect the counter, download the data, set the data settings, and then come over and you have a data overview screen, and then choose the report you want to generate. Oh, and before you do that, save the data if you haven't already. That's it. That should get you going. And I will have further videos in more details about what's going on and why you do certain things. But to get started, that's all you need to know. Okay, thank you.